Call your next witness.
So he calls that Agent Maria Cutshaw.
Come up, please. Let me go ahead and swear you. Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give today to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, please. Being recorded, give it a buzzer.
Agent Cutshaw, if you would spell your first and last name for us.
Maria, M-A-R-I-A, Cutshaw, C-U-T-S-H-A-W.
And where do you work?
I'm employed at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
What's your job there?
I'm a special agent.
All right, what kind of law enforcement experience and background do you have in training?
I've been in law enforcement for 23 years. I have an associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree in criminal justice field. I've had multiple trainings throughout the years in my career.
And how long have you been with the TBI?
7 years.
And what are your job responsibilities as an agent with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation?
We conduct investigations on basically any type of criminal activity that we're requested to.
How'd you become involved in this particular case?
I received a call from the assistant special agent in charge the evening of the 8th, around 8:50 p.m., and requested that I report to the scene. He had been requested by the district attorney, Ryan Desmond.
And do you know why it was the TBI was requested to assist in handling this investigation?
We're often requested in death cases, and especially we work most all officer-involved shootings in the state.
And obviously we have an officer-involved shooting in this particular instance, right?
That is correct.
So did you respond out to the scene there on Sevierville Road that night?
I did.
And what were you doing that night specifically?
That night, there were several agents that were called out. We did different tasks, and what I did was I interviewed 3 of the people that were in their vehicles that were sort of in line from traffic, and that was one of the first things I did after trying to gather some preliminary information and obtaining some of the Deputy McCallum's gun.
Okay. And in fact, let me ask, you're the lead investigator in this particular case.
I am.
But you're not the only person from the TBI that was working that night or had been working during the manhunt either, right?
Absolutely not.
How many would you say? Just
Dozens.
okay. And in fact, you all split some job responsibilities in terms of interviewing various people.
Absolutely.
So you said you'd interviewed 3 that night. Do you remember who it was you interviewed?
The scene witnesses that I interviewed was Elijah Tarwater, who was the homeowner of the residence which driveway this incident occurred in at 4953 Sevierville Road. Leslie Richardson, and a Jose Lewis.
And Mr. Lewis is not an English speaker, right?
He was not.
Did you have some assistance in interviewing him?
I did. I used a translator.
And the 2 people who were depicted, you've seen the videos even before today?
Yes, I saw them that night.
Okay. The 2 people who are depicted, I guess the Good Samaritans that are there, that are assisting, that are on the video, those are not, you didn't interview the 2 of them?
I did not. Another agent interviewed them.
But they were interviewed by, it was a TBI agent?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, as a part of y'all's investigation, were shell casings recovered?
From the scene?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How many were recovered, do you know?
Let me know that I did not work the crime scene. I have seen an ongoing list of the evidence recovered.
Where is it? The evidence that has been recovered, where is it located?
It's at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Hospital Office.
All right. What was recovered in terms of shell casings?
We recovered in total 6 .40 caliber spent shell casings and 2 9mm spent shell casings and 2 live 9mm.
Shells?
Bullets. They were live rounds.
Okay. As it relates to Deputy Egger's weapon, what kind of weapon did she have?
She and both Deputy McCallum carried a Glock 45 model, which is a 9mm weapon.
Okay. So the 9mm casings and live rounds that you recovered, that matches the calibers that would have been used in that weapon.
That is correct.
And then the other, the 40 caliber shell casings you recovered, have we recovered any type of 40, a gun that would have been shooting that type of weapon, or excuse me, that type of ammunition?
There have been several guns recovered in this case. There's been several search warrants executed at different locations, and there have been 4. I know there have been a gun and a box of a 40 that was recovered in different locations.
Okay. Do you remember where those were recovered from?
I know that the box of the 40 caliber was at the Carrie Matthews residence, and there was I believe there was one found at the Linden Avenue address where he was arrested on the 13th.
Okay. And you've mentioned Carrie Matthews. Who is Carrie Matthews in this, as it relates to this particular case?
He's the fiance, or she's the fiance of Mr. DeHart.
Okay. That particular night when you responded out there, did you have a chance to speak to or go to the hospital where Deputy Eggers was at UT?
I did not speak with her that night. Another agent did.
Okay. And she was then subsequently interviewed by the TBI later for a lengthier interview, I believe.
That's correct.
Were you a participant in that interview?
I was not.
Did you respond to, I believe, Deputy McCallum was taken to Blount Memorial Hospital?
He was.
Did you respond to that hospital that night?
I did not. He had already been pronounced deceased.
Okay. Did you attend the autopsy of Deputy McCallum?
I did.
If you could, where was that conducted?
The Knox County Regional Forensic Center.
Who conducted that autopsy?
Dr. Dorinka Malusny.
All right. Were you present for that?
I was.
Were you able to observe what kind of, if any, gunshot wounds were present on Deputy McCallum's body?
I did see gunshot wounds on his body. Yes.
Could you tell us and describe for us, for the court reporter here, could you describe where those wounds were located?
There was one on his right side, but if you were looking at him, it would have been to the right side of his nipple. And there was also one on his left lower abdomen.
Besides those two gunshot wounds, did you see any other injuries?
There were other wounds that were on his body, yes.
Okay. Was there anything recovered from inside his body?
There were two intact projectiles that were recovered
Where are those now?
at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Are those being examined?
They will be, yes.
Do we have any test results on those
We
yet?
have no test results on anything at this point.
Okay. Now, I know the search for the defendant went on for a prolonged period of time before he was located, I guess 5 days, right?
Yes,
And during the pendency of that time, was the Lexus that's depicted in the video, was it located?
it was.
Do you know when that was located?
It was located later that night. The address, I believe, is 4102 Franklin Hill Road.
Is that here in Blount County?
It is.
Was he in it?
He was not.
Do you know who processed, was it processed?
It was processed.
Who processed that vehicle?
Another agent at TBI.
All right, and where is the vehicle now?
It is at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Okay. Do you know if anything was recovered from inside that vehicle?
I know that there were several things that were recovered. One that I have mentally noted are the .40 caliber unfired bullets, 9mm magazine, fired projectile, taser probes and wires, and shotgun shells.
Okay. Was that vehicle, did you observe or do you know if there were bullet holes in that vehicle?
I know that there were. I don't feel comfortable testifying how many, as I was not there for the vehicle processing.
Okay. All right. Were you present, once the defendant was taken into custody, did you have an opportunity to see him once he was taken into custody?
I did. Once he was taken to the Blount County Jail, he was immediately taken up after he was booked in and processed. He was immediately taken up to their detectives division in an interview room.
And did you go to that interview room?
I did.
Were you there by yourself?
I was with another agent,
Which agent was that?
Special Agent Brandon Elkins.
Did the two of you attempt to interview the defendant that I guess it was that day?
We did.
How did that go?
He immediately stated that he would like to have an attorney present.
Okay. Did he make any other statements?
He made a few statements. No questions were asked. He made a couple of statements initially that he regretted not staying at the ballgame with his son, and he regretted turning down that road.
Did he indicate he regretted shooting the officers?
He did not make that statement.
That's all I have right now, Agent.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Agent Cutshaw, my name is Matthew Elrod. I'm one of the assistant public defenders here in Blount County. If I ask a question that you're unsure of or that you don't hear clearly, please just stop me or get my attention, and I'll repeat myself, or we can go back and clarify what needs to be clarified. First, I want to talk about, I couldn't help but notice during your examination by General Jenkins, I assume that you have notes that you're referencing or looking at
That's correct.
to refresh your memory. Are those notes that you've made and reports that you've made in the course of this investigation?
Those were notes that I have made in the last day.
Sure.
Just for court purposes.
Okay. Within the last day or two, or over the course of a couple of days, that you've been making those notes?
Since last night.
Okay. That's something that you did, though?
Yes.
Okay, that's something
Yes.
you prepared because you wanted to make sure your memory was correct in recalling things being asked here in court, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And without them, it goes without saying that sometimes we need to write down notes to jog our memory to make sure we accurately and truthfully tell a fact or recall a fact, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so without those, you would have been at a disadvantage, or you wouldn't necessarily been able to do that 100%, you thought?
That's possible. Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, pursuant to Rules of Evidence 803, number 5, recorded recollection, as an adverse party, I'd ask that the notes that she's been referring to in her testimony be admitted into evidence. I know the rule asks, and we're allowed to recite that and read that into the record. I'm not asking to do that now, but I do want to make that as Defense Exhibit 1.
We're not objecting, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. And let's talk about, I'll try to keep this in order from what we've seen on the video, what Deputy Eggers has discussed with us this morning. We know the reason for the stop. We know where it was stopped at. We know that Mr. D. Hart was a suspect and looks like it was an ongoing DUI investigation. That's accurate?
According to the video, yes.
And according to her you've been present here for her testimony. She believes she had a likely impaired driver from things, according to her training and experience, that she's seen, that she was worried that she had somebody that might have been using or been intoxicated by some substance.
Correct.
We didn't hear anything about alcohol being detected, but she was concerned that marijuana was detected, right?
That's what she stated.
Okay. Do you know, and this question might be better for talking about this stop, we saw in the video that the deputy, in doing some record checks and checking his driver's license status and checking his background or his warrant check, I'm assuming she used not only dispatch by radio means, but also she has access to databases and portals that might allow her to look and see if this gentleman is either wanted or what his license status is. Is that accurate?
Sure.
Okay. Do you know if those materials or those devices, I take it using her phone, the dispatch with the radio, none of those are recorded, but with regard to her computer or her phone, if she's using those items as record checks, is that something that y'all ordinarily would take into evidence, or is that something that you all have forensically gotten a copy of?
We will.
Okay, you will. So that you've not had a chance maybe to do that personally yourself, but it's in the process?
Yes, a lot of the items, well, most of the items have not been tested.
Sure.
Or forensically examined at this point. It's still very early on.
Right.
Many search warrants will have to be written to do those things, but those will be done.
Gotcha. And do you know if, I take it the same would stand as true for Deputy McCowan's, those items belonging to him or issued to him by the department, if he were to be using those? I'm not sure what he was or wasn't using that night, but those items would likewise be somewhere held and collected to review if needed?
Yes.
Okay. You said that you've had 23 years, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a law enforcement officer, 7 of which has been with the TBI. Before that, were you in a local or sheriff's department, a city police?
I worked both at a city and a county.
Okay, where were those agencies?
The city of Sevierville.
Okay,
That's where I began my career in 2001
gotcha.
to 2004. In 2004, I became deputy at the Sevier County Sheriff's Office.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've seen a whole lot of things and done a whole lot of things in your 23-year career. There was some discussion, and we've seen the use of the electronic control device, or the Taser. Do you know what model Taser we're talking about?
I believe it's a 7, but I would want to certainly reflect to the evidence
Gotcha.
I
Do you think,
did
do you,
not have that noted.
sure, that's okay. And if you don't recall, that's fine, let me know. Do you know the brand name? Was it an Axon, or do you know the brand name of the taser?
I believe it's Taser.
Okay, you think that's the actual name of it? Okay. And is that, I know that you said that Deputy McCowan and Deputy Eggers' firearms were taken, and that's being held by the Bureau of Investigation for testing and for evidence purposes. Were any tasers, and specifically Deputy McCowan's taser, was that something that you all have in evidence as well?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if, is this a model that, I think a lot of them, when they're fired, when they deploy those darts or those probes, ID tags come out?
Yes.
Is this one that does the same?
Yes.
Okay, so it essentially fingerprints what gun fired that specific probe or set of probes?
Yes, it gives a time, I believe it gives a time date. There's a report that will be generated from those items.
Sure, that was my next question. I think that in some way or fashion, either you can download it from the device itself, or the tags seem to suggest a date and time stamp of when that thing is fired, when it's been used. Is there also, are you aware of, does that device tell you how many times it was activated? So, and I'll make sure my question's clear. The probes are fired, as Deputy Eggers has said. They didn't get the reaction they needed to as far as incapacitation of Mr. DeHart. Fires again, the darts make good contact, like the deputy said. And then there's a couple of occasions where the 5-second bursts are being used. That, you would agree with that?
Yes.
Is there something inside the device, or is there something that you said it gives a report that tells us how many times in the duration of those usages, or?
The report should generate how many cartridges were deployed, as well as how many electric shocks were given.
Okay, all right. And I guess I should probably ask this too, in your law enforcement career and with any of these agencies that you've been with, you're familiar with those devices, those the control devices, a taser?
I'm somewhat familiar with them.
Okay. Have you ever been trained with them, or have you ever been deployed or used one yourself?
I have, but it's been 20 years.
Sure, I understand. I understand. But that's something that you, at that point in time, and I'll try to keep it pretty simple with my questions about it. What is it designed to do? Just, and I'm not looking for a scientific explanation. If you've got one, I'd love to hear it. But I'm just wanting to know, what is it designed to do?
I don't feel comfortable answering that.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it's been 20 years since I've had the training.
Okay. So you don't remember why you were issued that specific weapon during your duty as a law enforcement officer?
It was used as a less than lethal device.
Sure, that's what I'm looking for. And you would agree with me that it's being used as a device to get somebody compliant, make somebody do something that they're unwilling or shown unwilling to do?
Yes.
Okay. And that's used, and I think Deputy Eggers said her personal experience with it is it incapacitates, it freezes you, and it hurts.
Yes.
Okay, we understand that. That's something that you can recall, that those are things that the device does, right? Okay. Do you remember in training, and it's okay if you don't remember, just let us know, were there individuals that were suggested you don't use it on, or you do use it on, scenarios that play out that you might want to take extra caution before you use that device?
I do not recall.
Okay. Do you know, or do you remember if there were any cautions or concerns in your training about its repeated use or extended use, meaning more than one time, more than 2 times, more than 3 times? Do you remember anything about that?
I do not. When I was trained, it was very early on when police officers first began to get those. And I believe that, technology has changed, and so I do not have the answer to that.
Sure. And like you stated, it's early in an investigation. Do you all have an approximate or anything that's been measured out as far as that you've heard from other agents or yourself in relation to how far away that these shots from the taser were made or done, or where, or later on have you determined where on Mr. DeHart's body that those darts actually made contact?
We have not determined that.
Okay. Do you know if when he was brought into custody, Do you know if pictures were taken of Mr. DeHart?
They were taken by the jail staff.
Okay. Specifically by the Blount County Sheriff's Office, not necessarily TBI agents?
Correct.
Okay. And after that original, booking, any attempts at trying to get any pictures or anything like that of Mr. DeHart? Okay. You stated a little bit ago that some of the things that were recovered at the scene were 6 total, and I believe you said these are spent .40 caliber cartridges, shell casings, correct?
Yes.
6 total of those. You also recovered 2 9mm caliber spent shell casings and 2 live rounds, same 9mm.
Yes.
Okay. It's okay. I don't expect you to remember this, but were there brands on there? There's stamp brands on the shell casings?
There were, but I don't have the evidence list in
Sure.
front of me.
It's okay. Those are all in evidence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I know you stated that you didn't personally work the crime scene. Do you know if any agents have thus far or are continuing to work on trying to retrieve the lead round or the metal round? I won't necessarily say it's all lead. Some of them are a combination of different metals, but have there been any of those rounds, the actual projectile, recovered from that scene?
From the scene, no, there was 1 recovered in the Lexus, and there were 2 recovered in Deputy McCowan's body.
Okay. Do you know the caliber of those rounds that were the ones that you've located, the actual projectiles?
I do not at this point.
That's still being tested by the Bureau of Investigation?
That's correct.
Okay. You stated that the deputies both were issued Glock Model 45 9mm, and you stated that there have been, I think you said that there's been several weapons seized or taken as evidence in trying to determine and test those things. How many weapons did you say in total that you all have collected thus far?
I don't have that number in front of me.
More than one?
Yes.
Okay. And that was according to search warrants that you all have had issued through, I guess, you and other agents as well?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what residences those search warrants, other than Miss Matthews, you stated that was one, was a search warrant issued for the Hemlock address in Alcoa?
There was.
Okay. Do you know if anything was recovered there?
I don't have that list.
Okay. But you do recall that there was a .40 caliber box, and what else did you say that was recovered at Miss Matthews' address?
Well, what I have written down, this is not the complete list.
Sure, I understand.
This is from Carrie Matthews' residence. It's a Glock 357 pistol and then the .40 caliber pistol box.
Okay. Do you know what brand the pistol box that belonged to?
I believe it's a Smith & Wesson.
Okay. But the box led you to believe it at one point in time enclosed a .40 caliber pistol?
I'm sure it originally did.
Right. And I know that you stated that rounds were recovered from Deputy McCowan also. Was the round or rounds recovered from Deputy Eggers, her wound, do you know?
They were not recovered.
Okay. Do you know, I think you stated that the Lexus rounds were recovered from that vehicle as well. Where was it located or finally recovered or located? Do you know?
I did not process that vehicle, so I'm not comfortable answering that question correctly.
Okay. But TBI agents recovered that vehicle?
That's correct.
Okay. You don't, and was it located within the state? I'm not asking for a specific address, but do you know, was it located in Tennessee?
The Lexus?
Yes. Okay. You stated that 3 individuals that you interviewed, Mr. Tarwater, I believe Miss Richardson, and Mr. Luis, those are individuals that were in the line of cars at some point in time during this incident?
Yes.
Okay. Are those, do you know if those people are local residents, or they just passing through?
They live in Tennessee.
Okay. And did you record those statements that you, or your discussions with them, your interviews with them?
Yes.
Okay, those are recorded. Do you know if, with the other individuals that were interviewed, both the citizens that stopped by to help the deputies at the scene, as well as further interviews that the agents, special agents have done, are those normally recorded?
They are.
Okay. So it would be a surprise, or would be against policy, or be out of the ordinary for those interviews to be, for there to be interviews that exist that weren't recorded by you all?
Things happen sometimes.
Sure.
But generally speaking, if it's a substantive interview, we will record it.
Gotcha. Were you all recording, you said that you made an attempt to speak with Mr. DeHart, and in the criminal investigations, the sheriff's office interview rooms, they record those videos. Did you record as well?
Yes.
Okay, is that just a handheld, your phone or a handheld device?
We use a handheld device.
Gotcha. Do you know if any evidence was recovered from the, I know you said you didn't process it. Do you know, or have you been made aware that any evidence was recovered significant to the investigation from that silver Lexus?
Yes, I've discussed that earlier. I have a list of some of the items, but not a complete list.
Okay. What did you include on your list that you, of note, that was recovered from that vehicle?
6 unfired .40 caliber bullets,
Mm-hmm.
a 9mm magazine, a fired projectile, shotgun shells, and a Taser probe, the probes and wires.
Okay. The 9mm magazine, was that loaded, or did it have rounds in it, not have rounds in it?
I did not have that noted.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many search warrants have been issued in this investigation?
I do not have that complete list. It's
Multiple.
rather lengthy.
Multiple?
Yes.
Okay. Does it also include different vehicles?
Houses, vehicles, cell phones.
Sure. What about social media? Do you know if you all have made any judicial subpoenas or?
Reservations have been made on those.
Okay. Mr. DeHart's been charged with first-degree premeditated murder. You're the affiant on those offenses, right?
That's correct.
And I'm assuming that that's been done, or you make that decision in conjunction with the district attorney's office. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. In this case, I'll take it maybe step by step and talk about trying to think about this, a timeline. At the point in time, we'll talk about from the initial stop, we'll talk about the first time Mr. DeHart stops on the Sevierville Road, and the officer's first interaction with him to simply pull ahead, pull up. She does that twice. He finally pulls into the driveway. You've got so far so good where you're with me as far as where I'm at. At that point in time, are there objective facts that you can point to that we can tell the court about that leads you to believe that he'd formed the intent to kill either of these deputies at that point in time?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. That calls for a legal conclusion. The facts are what they are. She's testified to the facts. The video is the facts. Any legal conclusions that might be drawn from the facts are argumentative, and we'll be making that argument here shortly, and I'm sure the public defender's office will be happy to make a counter argument to whatever we make. But asking her to draw a legal conclusion based on facts is speculative on
Your Honor, I'm not asking her to draw a conclusion on whether the man's guilty, innocent, or any other type of legal conclusion other than to point the court to objective facts, so facts that the court can decide that this man's case should be bound over as charged with premeditated murder. I'm happy to read out, as an attorney in this court, I'm happy to read out the statute and what the elements and requirements are. The court has to take those into consideration. And facts that lead the court into knowing whether that is the case or not are pretty important. And it's not a legal argument.
Your Honor, he is asking her to draw a legal conclusion because he's asking her which facts are relevant to the determination of this particular legal conclusion. She can testify to the facts are on the video. Her trying to conclude what the state's argument might be about which facts are evidence of premeditation is again asking her to speculate.
I'm going to sustain the objection, Mr. Elrod. The court's seen the facts, and the court's familiar with the statute, and if the facts lead to the conclusion that the charges should go forward, the court will announce it. Or if it doesn't, the court will decide it.
I want to make sure I'm clear. The court's decided that that's the court's ruled on it thus far as this case being bound over.
I'm not understanding your question.
Well, you'll have to forgive me. I don't understand me asking about facts that lead this officer to conclude that charges be lodged against the defendant. That's the simple question that I'm posing. I'm not posing a legal argument for this witness to put forward a legal argument. I'd like to hear from her as to what facts constitute this offense.
He's asking her, Your Honor, specifically to say what the state's position is as it relates to the legal conclusion that the facts support the charge. That's what he's asking her to do. If he wants to ask her about any fact that she observed on that video, which we've all seen, by the way, he's asking her to testify to what we've all seen. That's asking her to speculate about what the state's argument is about the basis for the charge of first-degree murder. We have arguments about that, and again, we'd be happy to point them. We can't argue about anything that's not been introduced into evidence. We can't suggest anything about what's been introduced into evidence. All that's relevant for determination about probable cause is what the court has heard and seen here today. She can only speculate about what that argument is going to be. And frankly, her opinion is irrelevant in terms of which of them we're going to think is conclusory or suggests that it is a first-degree murder and an attempted first-degree murder.
I agree with the state, Mr. Elrod.
I understand. In thinking back and watching that video, you've watched it multiple times, correct?
I have.
Okay. In watching that video, at what point in this timeline can you point out, before the shooting takes place, any aggressive behavior that Mr. DeHart exhibits?
He refuses to comply, to
Okay.
get out of the vehicle after being asked several times. He tussles with the officer, as she had stated when she was trying to get his seatbelt off.
Okay. Does he curse her?
I don't think he does.
Does he hit her?
He does not hit her.
Does he hit or curse Deputy McCowan?
No.
Does he relate to them by any means, orally, written, or any other type of communication, his intent to do them harm?
He does not.
He doesn't do that.
No, at that point, he was just resisting to step out of the vehicle.
Sure. And at the point through which the taser's deployed, it's doing what it's designed to do. It's shocking him. They're trying to incapacitate. They're trying to get him to comply with him. During that course, does he exhibit any of those behaviors that I just asked you about?
That's when he tussles with the officer. That's how she described it, I believe.
Right, resists and just, I think, if I'm accurate, she says that she keeps him from, he keeps her from getting the seatbelt off, and she's not able to get the seatbelt off to roll him to get him out of there.
Correct. It is hard to see in the video,
Mm-hmm.
so that's very important in Deputy Ayers.
Right, right. So he doesn't specifically tell either of the two deputies that he's going to hurt or harm them, or he wishes to hurt or harm them.
He does not say that.
Okay. when you interviewed him or attempted to interview him, and I know you said that he made some statements during that point in time about remorse for different things, did he state to you at any time then his intent to hurt, harm, or kill either two of these deputies?
He did not.
Okay. Are you aware of any other witnesses that have any information with regard to statements that he's made as to those type of statements?
There were multiple interviews made. Those reports are not complete, so I don't have the completed reports on those.
Sure, but so in other words, we don't know quite yet whether he's made statements or anybody's come forward to other agents with regard to statements he may or may not have made about this incident.
I do not have those reports.
Okay, that's fair. And it's okay if you don't know the answer to some of these questions, just let me know if you don't. Obviously, the alleged offense occurred on the 8th of February. Mr. DeHart was not taken into custody, I believe, until the 13th of February. Is that accurate?
That is.
So during that time, I'll call it a search or call it a manhunt. I think we've heard that referenced here today. It was publicized quite a bit, correct?
It was.
Okay, and that's not only to, one, keep the public apprised of a relatively important thing in the community, correct?
Yes,
But secondly, they're actively trying to search for this man.
that's correct.
Do you have any idea how many times that law enforcement reached out to publicize and to get that message out? Do you have any idea?
I do not know.
Okay. And yeah, with that, I don't suppose you would know what agencies, what news organizations and agencies they were trying to seek out and get that message and get the word out.
I do not know.
Okay. In the search for Mr. DeHart, did you have any, I know that you said there were dozens of agents involved in the scene processing, interviewing witnesses, as well as searching for him. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Were you involved in the search and trying to track him down as well?
Very little. There's actually 2 cases that TBI has opened. We have the top 10 fugitive case, which is handled by another agent, and then the Austin Ball shooting, which is handled by myself.
Okay, I got you. And that's how you became involved, because that firearms were employed not only against deputies but by deputies.
Correct.
Okay. I guess that you said it was the top 10 fugitive list. What deputies involved in that? Is it Agent Elkins?
No.
Who is the other?
It's Special Agent Ed Ismaili-Gill.
Okay. Do you know, where's he stationed or based out of? Is it Knoxville?
He's out of the Knoxville.
Okay, all right. What other I know there were multiple, not only just local. What other law enforcement agencies were assisting in not only the manhunt, the search for Mr. DeHart, but also in processing and working the investigation? Well, I'd like to ask it in 2 different ways. One, do you know all the agencies even involved with the search for Mr. DeHart?
I do not know all of them. I do not have a comprised list.
Gotcha. It's fair to say that multiple state agencies and multiple federal agencies?
Yes.
Would the same be true in the agencies that were assisting in the actual investigation, meaning processing, interviewing, working and going through the case to make a prosecutable case? Is that same would be true?
TBI was responsible for the Austin Ball shooting,
Uh-huh.
and we will be the ones that conduct that case. I'm sure that Blount County will have their own internal investigation that they will do for themselves.
Gotcha. Have you had an occasion to interview any of the co-defendants? I'll call them co-defendants, the folks that have been arrested subsequent to this shooting. Have you yourself been able to interview those folks?
I spoke with Carrie Matthews.
Okay, you interviewed her. How soon after the shooting was that? Did you remember when that took place?
I believe it was, she's been interviewed several different times, by several different agents. So when I interviewed, I believe that it was the very next day. It could have been 2 days later.
Do
I'll
you,
have to check.
sure, that's okay. What pertinent information did you glean from that interview with her?
We were just trying to see if she had any information about where he would be.
Gotcha. Did you, any success with that?
Not really.
Okay,
She named several friends and people that he hung out with and family members. But
gotcha. Have you interviewed or had the occasion to interview any of Mr. DeHart's family or friends, some of that short list that she gave you? Have you had an occasion yourself to interview or talk to any of those folks?
other agents did that.
Gotcha. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, before you do stand, I need to pass down the notes to Mark, exhibit 5.